Hello and welcome to episode 108 of the How to Survive podcast. My name is Chris and joining me as ever in a sweltering London recording studio is Joe. And Joe, you're welcome to come on in.
Thanks very much. I'll stop loitering in the doorway.
Yes, and watching this week's film, Let the Right One In, I was struck by how much I would rather be in freezing cold Sweden.
Yeah.
Because it is the most humid day of the year, by far.
Yeah, it's been pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, so if you hear fans going in the background, air conditioning fans, not
yourselves.
Yeah. Then I apologise, but it's the only way that we're going to get through this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, we're both in jeans and shirts, which is a bad idea.
We've not thought this through, but one thing we have thought through is the structure of today's podcast, which will, of course, start with the plot recap before moving on to our thoughts on the film and then the eponymous How to Survive segment. So if you haven't seen Let the Right One In, have I actually said what the film is yet?
I think you possibly, but you have now.
The film is Let the Right One In. It's the 2008 Thomas Alfredson Swedish film that was remade a few years later as Let Me In.
Yeah. Have you seen that?
No.
Okay. No, more have I, so that's
why we're not talking about that
good
film.
Chat, yeah.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen Let the Right One In, then go away and watch it because it is probably one of the best films of the last 20 years or so.
One of the best we've covered on this podcast and certainly one of the best horrors.
Yes, and it is well worth your time. It is available on Netflix in the UK.
Yeah.
And it is a great film.
Yeah.
And we're about to spoil all of it.
And you'll also learn that the Swedish language sounds like English spoken by drunk people. Yeah, like the title of the film is Lat den rata komma in.
Yeah.
Or Lat den rata komma in. Which it translates literally as, please let me in, I'm a vampire.
Spoilers, Joe. Because I didn't say the word vampire at any point. But this is, of course, the first of 2 weeks of vampire films. This week it's Let the Right One In, and next week it's From Dusk Till Dawn. So, contrasting movies.
Är du vampyr? Hade du tyckt om mig ändå?
Oskar lives with his mother in a Stockholm suburb where he is repeatedly bullied by his classmates. Ellie moves in next door with her father figure Håkan, who one night ventures out and attacks a student, hanging him upside down and cutting his throat to drain his blood. When a dog walker stumbles upon the scene, Håkan panics and leaves behind some of his equipment. Ellie and Oskar bond over Rubik's Cubes and their mutual isolation. Ellie learns that Oskar is being bullied and encourages him to stand up for himself, leading Oskar to begin weight training classes after school, which I don't know all that much about weight training, but I'm not convinced that they're doing anything for him, really, because he's like a pencil.
Yeah, but he starts like 3/4 of the way through the film.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Well, no, it's I think he starts earlier than that, because there are a few graduating scenes of him lifting weights. Throughout the film. Following Håkan's botched blood harvesting, Ellie herself heads out one night, killing and drinking the blood of a local man called Jocke. Håkan hides Jocke's body under the ice in a local lake. In another attempt to harvest a teenager's blood for Ellie, Håkan is caught by the would-be victim's friends. To avoid identification and leading authorities to Ellie, he pours acid over his face. Ellie visits Håkan in hospital and, with his consent, drinks his blood, killing him. That night, Ellie sleeps with Oskar in his bed and they agree to go steady. On a field trip to a local lake, Oskar hits one of his bullies, Connie, with a pole, splitting his ear open. At the same time, Jocke's body is discovered under the ice. Jocke's friends resolve to solving his murder and finding out who's responsible with the help of Goster, a local recluse who witnessed the crime. Oskar cuts his hand in order to make a blood bond with Ellie, but she begins frantically licking the blood and tells him to get away. There are a few symptoms developing here, Joe. She instead attacks Virginia, another of Yocka's friends, but the attack is thwarted by her boyfriend Laka. Following the attack, Virginia begins to show signs of vampirism, resulting in her being hospitalized. So, photophobia, a desire to drink blood. And
It's not just photophobia, though. She gets
searing burns.
One photon on her finger, and it burns her quite badly.
Yeah, and Kat's taken an intense disliking to her.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a common vampire.
Yeah, I'm not sure
thing.
really. It's not one that I'm aware of, but it's certainly seems the case here.
I have 2 cats, and they've never lurched at vampires.
Well, to your knowledge, it might be keeping them at bay.
True.
All that's keeping them at bay. Virginia's been showing symptoms, and recognizing she's becoming a monster, she asks the nurse to open the blinds in her room and is consumed by fire as sunlight floods in. Having now lost both his friend and girlfriend, Laka traces Ellie to her apartment and resolves to kill her, but is startled by Oskar, allowing Ellie to attack and kill him. With the commotion alerting neighbours, Ellie realises it is no longer safe to stay and leaves that night. Oskar is invited to the pool by one of Connie's friends, who tells him that Connie deserved what happened to him. Once he is swimming in the pool, it is revealed to be a cruel ruse, and Connie's older brother appears with the intention of drowning him. While Oskar is being held under the water, Ellie arrives, killing and dismembering the bullies, with the exception of their most reluctant participant, who sits on a bench sobbing. In a coda, Oskar sits on a train with a large box. He taps out a message in Morse code to Ellie, who is inside.
Do you know what the message was?
PUSS, which means a small kiss in Swedish.
Yeah. Yes. Good knowledge of Swedish.
Yes. Yeah, so that was Let the Right One In, directed by Thomas Alfredson. What did you think? It's the first Swedish film we've covered.
Yeah, first Swedish film, first vampire film.
Yes.
And maybe one of the best films we've covered.
Yeah, I think so.
It's one that certainly stands up to scrutiny. Next week we've got Dusk Till Dawn. I don't think we'll have as much fun talking about that.
Well, yeah, save it for next.
Yeah, I'm just throwing forward, you know.
Yeah,
good broadcasting awareness. I mean, Let the Right One In is beautiful. It's a genuinely beautiful film. It makes your heart ache for the characters.
Yeah,
and I mean, if a movie can make you want something to happen really desperately, it's doing something right.
Yeah,
which it does. You want them to have a relationship together, and you want them to overcome the stigma that they face and the difficulties they got in their lives.
Yeah. And
you do that through each other. I mean, at some point I was thinking I hope he becomes a vampire, which is a weird sort of thing to think, but then they'd have each other. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, forever.
Yeah. Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, well, sort of, yeah. I think you're right in that it's a beautiful film, especially aesthetically. I think it looks amazing.
Yeah.
And it's shot by Hoyte van Hoytema, who is one of the best names in cinematography. Yeah, and it looks fantastic. It looks cold as well. Like all the color tone and everything like that just really sells the sort of Swedish cold aesthetic, I think. And you really feel it almost when you're watching it.
Yeah,
I think. Which might sound obvious, but and also I think the snowy sort of Swedish suburb is the perfect setting for a vampire film, if for nothing other than the blood being an excellent contrast on the snow.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, every scene in the movie had some red in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
As your useless IMDb trivia.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you in the sense that it's definitely one of the best films we've covered. And I think it's an interesting vampire film to cover because it is both, very definitely a vampire film. It has all of the genre tropes of a vampire film in terms of the vampire's characteristics.
Yeah.
But also it is a sort of subversion of it in the sense that you've got a sort of young girl instead of an old man being the primary vampire, or the only vampire in it, I suppose. You've got a sort of reluctant hunter or a man who feels quite guilty, it appears, about what he's doing, who's the one hunting for blood. And obviously the film's location, I think, is quite subversive when it comes to your standard vampire film.
What, 1980s Sweden?
Yeah, exactly. You don't see many vampire films with that setting. No. And I think it's more of a coming of age sort of drama than it is a sort of typical vampire horror movie.
Yeah.
Even if it does, have all the sort of drinking blood, needing to be invited in, dying in daylight, and being ageless, and all the other sort of vampire tropes that you expect.
Yeah, I mean those things. I mean, being ageless is important, I think, because it's coming of age, and I think both characters want to grow up. Yeah, that's like something that I was thinking a lot. But one can and one can't. Well, neither can immediately. I think Oskar wants to grow up because he wants to escape his bullies to get big and tough, and Ellie wants to grow up because for possibly hundreds of years she's been trapped in the same body.
Yeah, and it's quite. I appreciate the fact that they sort of leave a lot of that to the imagination. And
when she's asked like, "How old are you?" She's like, 12.
12, but I've been 12 for a long time. Yeah. I think it's all like nicely played and subtly done throughout, which I think really adds to it. And the sort of hints that you do get about Ellie and maybe the things that she's gone through are sort of sinister enough to give you sort of quite a lot of pause. But also, like I said, only alluded to in the sort of broadest of ways.
Yeah. You get, there's one which isn't much an illusion as a full exposure, where you see her scarred genitalia.
Yeah.
Which I guess, from the novel, that she's castrated. She's actually was a boy.
Yes. Yeah.
But then in the movie she keeps saying, I'm not a girl. But that could mean I'm not a girl, I'm a vampire.
Yeah.
But it could mean I'm not a girl, I'm a boy.
Yeah, it certainly appears to be that she's that she was born male. Yeah. And has been the scar is implies a lot of things, but again it doesn't
spell it out.
And no one asks her about it. No. Or and like even the fact that it's now a sort of weird romantic relationship between an ageless 12-year-old boy and a 12-year-old boy, like that doesn't really factor into it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's they don't really go into it. It doesn't matter.
No,
almost.
Exactly. Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's almost like a love story that is truly sort of boundary traversing. And I think it does focus a lot on Oskar and Ellie's relationship and Oskar's trouble in school. Maybe even more than the vampire stuff.
Yeah, it's almost like a B plot, isn't it? The vampire stuff. The vampire stuff just happens to this guy and his friends.
Yeah, it's like an incidental factor in the story that's going on, and it's like quite a sweet film, like you said, really, and more about their bond. And I think it does sort of allow for some, like deeper thinking about the nature of sort of adult and child relationships and things like that. Because, if it seems to be in some way that Ellie has sort of Hakan under her control in a sort of coercive way.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to imagine why he would want to do it otherwise.
Yeah, the impression I got was that maybe he is the reason she became a vampire, or he did something bad that led to that.
Yeah, but if she's hundreds of years old...
She never said... I guessed hundreds. She could be 50 years old.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but is it possibly... in the novel, Hakan is a paedophile, which gives its own sort of reasoning, I guess, for why he's doing those things. And there's even like an allusion to that in the film where Ellie says that people help her for different reasons,
right?
Or something like very sort of
oblique,
vague, exactly, obliquely referred to. But it does sort of cast a different light on Ellie and Oskar's relationship as well.
Yeah,
potentially, because it's sort of like as much as Oskar seems to need her and need her relationship, he needs it in a very different way to
how she needs him.
Exactly, yeah. And is it going to be long before she's sort of making him kill for her?
Because he's a vulnerable person.
Yeah,
she could say, well,
yeah,
you, if you love me, you do it for me.
Exactly, and he seems to have a sort of we see him leafing through like a scrapbook of murder cutouts from newspapers and things like that. And the film opens on him mock stabbing a tree.
Yeah.
So probably it's strongly implied. He's thinking of his bullies when he's doing that.
Yeah, exactly. But he carries a knife, and he's not. Yeah. He's certainly thinking about killing people anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So is it she's taking a vulnerable person and pushing potentially in the future pushing them over the edge.
Maybe. Yeah.
It's sort of like I guess gives you the opportunity to take that reading from what otherwise seems to be quite a nice ending to the film.
Yeah, because it could be that he's the new Hakan.
Exactly, yeah. Which for a 12-year-old boy is quite a tall order. And if she's exploiting him in that way, does it make her any better than the bullies that sort of form the other sort of half of the story? I suppose.
It's a very clever film in that sense.
Yeah, I think.
How many horror movies do we cover where it's like everything is spelled out for you? Whereas with this, it's the best because it spells out nothing. It's just it just shows you some things in a really artistic way, and you're led to go away and just think about it. It's better that it doesn't go. Oh, actually, she's 1,000 years old, and she was made into a vampire by Vampiro, the king of the vampires.
Exactly. And the third act is them killing Vampiro to set her soul free or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the nearest to that sort of thing that the film ever trades is when he's directly asking her whether she's a vampire. But by that point it's so clear that she is a vampire that it's sort of
he's stating it rather than asking.
Yeah, it's redundant for us at least that he's even asking the question.
So one of my favourite characters was the flustered guy with his cats.
Right.
Who just sits in his flat watching people get murdered and then doing nothing about it because he's worried about being interrogated.
Yeah. He's like a sort of recluse, isn't he? Yeah.
It's quite funny because he's people just come in his house and drink and he's like, oh, good to see you again. Yeah. Clearly in position.
Yeah. And how many cats has he got?
I didn't count, but there was certainly
a dozen or so, yeah. And I think the only bit in the film which becomes sort of near laughable for me at least is when Virginia goes to his flat after she's been bitten.
Yeah.
And the cats all attack her, and there's sort of a shot of some sort of quite CGI looking cats, and she's flailing around, and it all just looks a bit
hammy.
Yeah. But it's funny rather than sort of doesn't spoil the film. It's just sort of
unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, I guess what they're going for is shocking, but because it's cats who are cute animals attacking, it's just what the fuck.
Yeah.
So when the rabbit in the Holy Grail attacks, it's
it is like that. Yeah, it's like those sort of things where it would be just a stuffed animal, and they're holding it to their neck, and flailing around, But aside from that, a good film, and it's quite gory as well. Even though the main characters are all children, it's pretty messy.
The detail on the acid burn was pretty horrendous.
Yeah,
it was a bit. It was worse than Harvey Dent in The Dark Knight, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty. He has only destroyed one half of his face. If I do this, and hold up a piece of paper to cover half of my face, you could mirror this half, and get a pretty good idea of what I look like.
That's true.
But Hakan has only done it to one half of his face.
Yeah.
And so some very lazy investigations if they can't work out his identity from that.
Yeah. But so you were saying early how to survive tip for the police is just hold up a mirror.
Yeah, or how to not be identified tip is to pour the acid all over your face as opposed to just on one half.
Yeah, that's a fair tip.
Yeah. I would say how to survive tip, but I don't think that's something we should be advising. And I think one of my favourite scenes or one of my favourite shots, to say the least, in the film is when Virginia immolates in the hospital bed, and there's like quite a long sort of shot of just her bed like becoming an inferno.
Yeah,
and it's like like I love. It's always satisfying to see like mythology that you're very familiar with, like given a realistic, portrayal in a film. I think,
right.
Like you mentioned The Dark Knight a minute ago. Like I think the reason that film's so successful is because it's taking like a hysterical comic book character like the Joker and turning him into
a real world.
What would he be like if in the real world?
Yeah,
and like with this, it's like the vampire doesn't turn into ash or anything like that. Like just instantly, it's like it like sets on fire.
Yeah,
and that's I think it's just like a really, particularly the scene of all the flames the shot of all the flames is a really stark image.
It is. It's quite shocking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any vampire traits that they made up for this film, other than maybe the cats attacking, which I'm not familiar with?
Well, can Ellie fly? It appears that she can.
I think that's been around in vampires stuff before.
But it's sort of, it seems like vampire films pick and choose what they can and can't do.
Yeah,
it's sort of like, broadly speaking, it's always they're strong, but some of them can fly, some of them turn into bats.
I guess with werewolves, it's they turn into a werewolf on a full moon and you kill them with a silver bullet.
Yeah,
those are the two agreed things.
Mm-hmm.
With vampires, there's a long list of potentials.
Yeah,
because what if like
it's like steak, garlic, like as in a wooden steak. Sorry, garlic,
holy water, a cross, sunlight.
Yeah.
I guess. If you read the Bible to them, would they have had them?
Like I'm sure these are all things that I've seen before.
Yeah.
And then also you have, sort of I guess proto vampire films, or like vaguely vampiric films like I Am Legend or something like that.
Right, yeah.
Where they're sort of just monstrous.
But in the novel for that, they are actually vampires.
Yeah.
And they talk to people and have conversations.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the movie, they took a different tack to turn them into these like weird zombie things.
Yes, they did. Yeah. And that's enough discussion of I Am Legend.
I had a colleague at work who is Swedish translate the notes that Ellie leaves.
Yeah.
Because we both watched it on Netflix, I think, and they've got like subtitles for the hearing impaired.
But not for the Swedish impaired.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like humming.
Yeah.
Or like instrumental music plays, and I'm like, well, I can hear that.
Yeah.
Which would be useful if I had an hearing impairment, but I don't. So, but I can't read Swedish, so I asked them, this colleague of mine, what did the note say? The first one is the one which is left in his bedroom after they agreed to go steady.
Yeah.
And it's got like a love heart on it, just to refresh your memory.
Mm-hmm.
And that translates as, to escape is life, to delay death. You're Ellie.
Okay. Profound stuff.
Yeah, for a 12-year-old. I guess the meaning there is, I mean, it's obviously meant to be quite oblique, but, you know, if to run away is living, but if I stay here, I'll die.
Yeah.
Which is correct. And the second note is the longer one, which he finds after he wakes up, like on her bathroom floor, I guess, or bedroom floor.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, I'm in the bathroom. Please don't go in. Do you want to meet me tonight? I like you so much. You're Ellie.
Oh.
Which is nice, because I thought it was like, I'm leaving. See you around.
Yeah.
But I couldn't read Swedish. Did you think something similar?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
It's they're not helping us. They're not helping us at Netflix HQ.
No, strange. But otherwise, other than that, the closed captioning, bloody good film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we talk about How to Survive, obviously it's always good to recap what we know after this.
This episode of How to Survive is sponsored by Mr. T Luxury Teas, who bring you this week's piece of useless IMDb trivia. This week's film is Let the Right One In. The word vampire is only said once in the film. That fact might not be worth knowing, but Mr. T certainly is. Head over to Mr. T Luxury Teas to choose from a wide range of traditional, herbal, and fruit teas from all over the world, packed with health benefits and gathered to help you get the most out of your day. Visit mr-tea.co.uk or Google Mr. T Luxury Teas to find us. Use offer code SURVIVE at checkout to receive 10% off any order you make.
So it's that time of the show, Joe, when we like to talk about what do we know. And obviously the main thing about which we do or do not know in this week's episode are vampires. So what do we know about vampires?
If they go in the moonlight, then they get jewels all over their skin, don't they?
Yeah, sparkly vampires. Yeah, that's right. No, isn't that the sunlight in Twilight, I think?
So sunlight doesn't kill them.
It makes them sparkly. Yeah.
That's an important distinction.
Yep.
Maybe it was a mistranslation over the generations of vampire lore.
Yeah.
Actually, it's like sunlight's really good for them.
Yeah, they meant like, they meant kill in like he's killing it. Like,
They turn into a disco ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they, drink blood for sustenance.
Yes.
Tick. They're strong, possibly able to fly, as we were saying. Quite violent.
Turn into bats. Maybe that's how she flies.
Maybe. But, I mean, the only time I think that we really see her flying, or it's implied that she's flying, is when Oscar's being held under the pool.
Yeah.
And someone gets, like, dragged along the surface of the water behind him.
Yeah.
Which I guess, she could be, like...
sprinting along the side of the...
Or leaping, or, who knows. But they're very violent.
Yeah.
As we see.
Seem to have no respect for life.
No, or heads remaining on bodies.
No.
Ageless, and they have helpers, like Hakan and possibly Oskar. But they do not like sunlight, have to be invited into places lest they have a sort of seizure.
And start bleeding out of their hair follicles.
Yeah.
Let's not forget.
Yeah. And they seem to get much weaker when they're hungry as well.
Yeah, as we all do.
Yes, correct. So all good things to know. Also, the other threat in this film is, of course, bullies.
Yeah.
And this is another film which makes you just think children are scum.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Which, of course, we all know that they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so don't have kids and then no more bullies.
Yeah, or don't hang around with kids.
Yeah.
Lest they bully you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a constant fear of mine.
Yes. Well, have you any advice for anyone in this film as to how they would survive?
Yeah, I'm going to start with Hakan.
Oh, yeah.
Now, his first attempted kill.
Yeah.
Lots of exits on there. Oh, lots of potential escape routes because he's in a wood.
Yeah.
And can run in literally any direction to more or less safety and cover. Second one, he goes for what amounts to being a cupboard.
Right.
With windows.
A changing room in the basement of a leisure centre or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a school, I think. In any case, there's only one door and there's still people in the building.
Yeah, I presume he doesn't realise that people are still knocking around.
Right,
he?
Yeah.
Like, otherwise he'd be mad to do it.
Well,
unless he's just banking on getting it done within sort of like a couple of minutes.
How long do you think it takes to drain the blood out of a body? Yeah,
like string up a person. Yeah. I mean, do you think he's being greedy by making sure that they're strung up each time? Like, I get why he's doing it, but could he not compromise and say, I'm in this, basement, there are other people in the building, I'll just like cut their throat where they stand and collect all the blood?
Yeah, I suppose not a bad idea.
Surely some blood is better than no blood. And, some blood and not getting caught.
Yeah. Yeah, so what, a small amount. But you don't know how much like a meal is for a vampire.
Yeah, that's
never
true.
Established. Like does she drink all of Hakan's blood?
Well, I don't know. Enough, clearly.
To kill him.
Yeah. Or like enough to...
Well, he's still alive when he falls.
But she's got like she's with that situation, she'd be mad not to just have her fill, surely.
Yeah.
Like she'd be better off just,
But surely that's the same with any time she's drinking blood from someone.
Yeah, but most of the time she's not drinking blood from someone. She's having it brought to her by Hakan.
Right, okay.
So like,
so he could put her on a diet without her.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's difficult.
So long story short, had Hakan decided to wait till this particular kid was outside in the open,
yeah,
that would have been more fruitful probably.
Yeah, because he'd have had an escape route.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Perhaps the reason he didn't want to do that is because of his botched first attempt, which he did do in the open in the forest and nearly got caught.
But at least he had an escape route. He got caught this time as well, and it ended with him having to pour sulfuric acid over his head.
That's true. My issue and my first survival tip for Hakan is related to his first exsanguination attempt.
Yeah.
And don't pick the best lit spot in a giant wood area for you to do your things. It basically looks like he's in a spotlight.
Yeah.
Like everything's brilliant white around him and there's like the rest of the wood looks much darker, but yet that's the bit that he's chosen to string this guy up.
Really good for directors of movies, really bad for
it's convenient, isn't it,
murderers.
for Thomas Alfredson. Yeah. But he's not thought that through at all, is he? Because in the dark, obviously, Joe, much harder to see people. In the light, famously, a lot easier to see people.
Yeah.
And he runs the risk of being caught.
So the impression I get is, I'm just thinking out loud here, he doesn't really mind killing people.
It doesn't appear to be, yeah.
So why didn't he just kill those two girls when they showed up?
Well, maybe he's just... I don't think he sees the girls, does he? He sees the dog, and the dog sort of...
Right, and he hears people coming.
Yeah, so he's like, oh my God, they could be Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers from Predator. I better get out of here.
I think that's probably is what he's thinking.
Yeah? From Predator that's yet to be released for another 6 years or whatever at that time. Yeah. But yeah, basically my survival tip is if you're going to murder people, do it in a dark spot rather than under a spotlight.
So we've got two criteria there for Hakan. 1, exit, and 2, dark.
Yeah, I think like a combination of our advice would yield much better results.
Yeah. Fair point. My next one is for Hakan again.
Yeah.
Although it could be for Ellie, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
It's for everyone who benefits in that little scheme they've got going
arrangement.
On. Yeah. Why not kidnap someone and keep them locked up in the room and just continually drain their blood like a pint at a time for forever? That's option one.
Like get a vagrant or something.
Yeah.
Is that how it would work? Like how? I mean, you'd surely you'd incur expenses in like keeping them alive. Yeah, it's like a blood farm.
Yeah, but how much do you need?
Well, how much do you regenerate? You know.
Okay, how about this?
Day?
I mean, let's assume I have no idea the answer to that question, but let's say it's 1 pint a week. You grow back, right? On that basis, you needed like 3 people.
Yeah. You're just spitballing like numbers, I presume.
Yeah, I am. But say you have 3 people, that's a pint a day. That's 2 pints a week each, 2.2 pints, and you can lose 2.2 pints of blood and still live.
Right. So you put them on a 3-week cycle.
Yeah.
So 3 people, one person gives 2.2 pints, the other person does.
Or you break it up through the week so they each.
It seems like this would be expensive because they'd need like food and drink to in order to be alive enough to produce blood. I
guess the second option then is to break into the home of an old person who lives alone.
Yeah.
And just kill them in their house.
Maybe he's going after teenagers for a reason. Like maybe they've got the best blood.
Maybe.
Like the younger the person, the better the blood. Although she doesn't seem to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like it's basically coming back to the idea of doing it in a better place, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Or like
a more scalable operation.
Yeah, having a better setup for your endeavour, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah, I can see why that would be a good idea.
Here's a question for you, just to break up the chat a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they going at the end?
Well, my second survival idea actually is all about that, really.
Okay.
not so much the destination, but how they're getting there. But yeah, I guess they're just going off to a new life of some sort.
2 12-year-olds. Well, 1 12-year-old in a big box.
Yeah.
Someone's asking questions, surely.
Well, this is what I was going to say, in that they're traveling during the day, and as a result, Ellie has to stay in a box. Right? Now, that seems dangerous because there are more people around during the day. Many times, I'm sure you've gotten trains during the night, and there's often not even a guard on the train.
Yeah.
And if there is, they're sort of, not that bothered.
Yeah, checked out.
Yeah. Like, what if, because of security concerns, for example, they made Oskar, who, by the way, is much too young to be travelling on his own with a box that size without incurring suspicion. Like, what if they made him open the box in the middle of the day because of security concerns or whatever? So they just open the box and Ellie, like, immolates. It doesn't seem like it's very well thought through.
No.
Whereas if, like, it's the middle of the night, is likely to only be one guard there who's saying, "Oh, open that box. I want to see what's inside," and then Ellie can just kill it.
Yeah, that's true. Between stations.
Yeah, and then if they're traveling at night, she doesn't even need to be in the box in the first place.
That's true. Yeah,
like sleeper trains, I'm sure are a thing in Sweden as they are in the rest of the world. It would be easier to avoid notice if they travelled at night.
What if they put her in, like, scarf and
balaclava or something?
Yeah.
I guess there's no law against that.
Because I was thinking, does she watch him when he's out, like, during the day? And I thought, she can't, because if she put her face to the window, even an eyeball to the window, the eyeball would burn.
Yeah.
So she must have to be in complete darkness, hence the coffin, I guess.
Yeah. Well, she makes a sort of coffin out of her bathtub, doesn't she? Yeah. I mean, that must be a very well insulated box.
Yeah.
To not let any light in at all.
Yeah. Also, it must be heavy. He's been in strength training.
Well, though, when Yoka picks up Ellie at the start, he says, "You barely weigh a thing."
That's true.
In a sort of like astounded way. So I wonder if vampires, that's another characteristic of vampires that we missed.
And she does scale that building really quickly. And
so maybe it's just she's got normal strength, but it's sort of like, scaled up because of how light she is.
So you got any more thoughts there, Chris?
Yeah, I've got one final idea. And it's more of a discussion point, I suppose. And that's, what possible benefit is there to being a vampire helper? Because either you avoid death, I guess, like, if you're about to be attacked by a vampire, you go, "Oh, please don't kill me. I'll be your aide," or whatever. But that appears to be the very likely result anyway. It doesn't seem like you could be just a serial killer forever.
No.
Or like what, you survive long enough and then get turned into a vampire if they like you enough?
I think you'd have to, maybe they wouldn't like you in order to turn you into a vampire, because it's quite a punishment, isn't it?
But like that would, allow you to be there with them forever. Otherwise they just keep you as a means of getting food.
Yeah, because I was thinking economically about this.
Yeah.
If it was true love and he said, "Look, make me into a vampire," she'd say no, because I need someone to go out and harvest blood for me.
Yeah. We'll have to find another person, and then that shifts the whole dynamic. What if it's like a love triangle develops?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's an uncomfortable situation for them to be in. Yeah.
Yep, that's uncomfortable.
But do you have any sort of idea of what benefit there could be? Because basically, I suppose my idea for survival is don't be a vampire helper. Or, if you manage to convince, "Oh yeah, I'll be your helper," right? First time she goes, "Oh, I'm hungry." Go, "Right, you wait there. I'm going to nip out and get some blood for you. Just never come back."
Yeah. So you just escape early on?
Yeah. Because what they're going to do, they're just going to gradually get weaker throughout the days. And then...
Presumably, though, she... Like, Hakan and Oskar both want to help her. They both love her. That's clear.
Although with Hakan, it's less clear, I suppose.
Yeah, but he does seem to be obligated. He's not doing it because of, like, she's not threatening him. He's like, he's willing.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So whether it's what you said earlier about him, getting sexual gratification from her in some way, which is problematic, or whether he feels obligated because he caused her to become a vampire or caused some earlier issue. I think Hakan seems indebted in some way, rather than there being a business arrangement.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Oskar just does it out of love.
Yeah. Seems weird that people would give up their time and their energy to providing something for no repayment of any sorts to, blood-sucking leeches on society. But anyway, enough about the How to Survive podcast. What do we got next week, Joe?
Next week we've got more blood-sucking leeches.
Yeah.
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
The Robert Rodriguez classic from the 90s.
Yeah.
Starring that leading man.
The hunk.
Yeah. Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
Playing alongside George Clooney, who is the only reason the film is watchable. Maybe Harvey Keitel as well. He's quite good.
Yeah.
But the film is unwatchable.
Don't spoil what you think.
Well, it's on Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to put yourself through that.
Yeah. I tell you what, make it your own mind. You know what they say? What do critics know anyway?
Yeah.
There's no statues of a critic, is there?
No. If you want to sink your teeth into a vampire classic, that's From Dusk Till Dawn next week on the podcast.
Maybe watch The Lost Boys instead.
Well, if you want to get in touch with your thoughts, maybe you love From Dusk Till Dawn and you want to tell us why, the email address is howtosurviveshow@gmail.com. The Twitter is @howtosurvivepod, and you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/howtosurvivepod.
Yeah, and be sure to leave us a 5-star review. Not like the 5-star review I just gave From Dusk Till Dawn there.
Yes.
Yeah. Because that's not 5 stars. But we are 5 stars. We deserve the 5 stars because we put out good content. Better than anything Robert Rodriguez has ever done, I'd say.
Well, interesting talking points for next week.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Chris.
And I have been Joe.
Till next time, lat de rata comma in.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that was more or less correct. I don't know if the accent's right, but that's the words.
That's the words.
Them's the words.